The beginning is not a point in time, but a trembling that precedes time itself, a breath so subtle that it slips through the grasp of thought. Before the sky was stretched and the earth was pinned in place, there was only the limitless depth where no direction held meaning. Out of that depth came a soundless command, a vibration of pure will that the mind cannot capture, and in that vibration every world was born and reborn. To speak of a first veil is to speak of the mercy that cloaks unbearable brilliance. For the essence of the real is a radiance that would shatter the fragile frame of a heart unprepared to behold it. What seems hidden is in truth an act of shelter, a gentle dimming of the sun so that the eye might learn to see without blindness. This shelter is everywhere and nowhere. It is in the movement of the oceans as they rise to kiss the moon, in the quiet pulse of a sleeping child, in the stretch of a shadow across stone. Each of these is a sign, but the sign is not a riddle for the clever. It is an invitation for the surrendered. The secret is never absent. It flows through the blood of existence like a quiet river, and yet most turn away expecting a thunderous revelation while ignoring the silence that is more eloquent than speech. Those who have glimpsed even a corner of this mystery speak of a presence that is nearer than breath, and yet vaster than the stars. They tell of a nearness that erases distance, without destroying difference, of a light that hides itself so that the seeker may ripen. The concealment is not punishment, it is a lover's patience, waiting for the beloved to awaken, for the heart to soften, for the veil of self to thin, until a single spark can pierce the night. The veil also protects the rhythm of creation. At every instant the hum-bi-o-ev resounds, not as a moment locked in the past, but as a continual surge of becoming. Each grain of dust, each orbit of a planet, each breath drawn by mortal lungs is a fresh testimony to that command. To perceive this is to feel the universe as a living recitation. Every heartbeat a syllable in an endless verse, yet to rush toward it with grasping hands is to lose it. For it yields only to those who stand still enough to hear. To approach this hiddenness requires more than ritual or argument. It asks for the slow unmaking of the self that clings to certainty. The ego is a curtain of smoke, and as long as it remains, the hidden garden stays unseen. One must become as fluid as the wind, as receptive as the night sky, allowing every notion of possession to fall away. Only then can the subtle fragrance of the real drift in and take root, a fragrance that no words can hold. Thus the first veil is not a wall but a mirror, showing the seeker the limits of perception and the boundless mercy that waits beyond. It is the hush before dawn, the stillness that teaches the ear how to listen. It is the gentle concealment of a presence too luminous for eyes unready to receive, a hiddenness that is itself the first revelation. Creation does not rest. What many call the beginning was only the first ripple of a tide that never ceased to move, a current of becoming that flows through every instant with unbroken force. The command that summoned existence was not a single cry lost to antiquity, but an eternal resonance, a soundless decree that continues to speak within every grain of sand and every stretch of the night sky. Each moment is the first moment repeated without end, the universe unfolding and folding again like a breath that no one owns. To sense this is to feel the heartbeat of reality pulsing beneath appearances, to know that the stars above are not ancient embers but living witnesses to a command forever renewed. The mind seeks a past event, a calendar of creation, yet the true birth of the world occurs now and now again. Every thought, every stirring of wind across the desert, every drop of rain is a fresh articulation of that single word that set all things in motion. The seasons are not merely cycles but signs of perpetual genesis, each dawn a silent testimony that the real has not withdrawn but continues to call the universe into being. What we mistake for repetition is endless originality. What we name as history is only the echo of a voice that speaks eternally in the present. To witness this continuity demands a stillness deeper than sleep. It is not achieved by fleeing the world, but by entering it so completely that the boundary between observer and observed dissolves. When the seeker allows the self to soften, the hum of constant creation becomes audible in the simplest acts: the rising of bread, the flicker of a candle, the drawing of a breath. These are not metaphors but revelations, each carrying the same force that once spun galaxies from void. The hidden command is not distant. It courses through the veins and trembles in the bones. It is the motion behind thought, the quiet spark that ignites desire, the pause between heartbeats where eternity nestles. To recognize it is to recognize that the universe is not a finished artifact, but an ever-living poem, recited without pause by the one who never tires. Such recognition reshapes the meaning of time itself. Past and future fade like mist, leaving only the immediacy of now, a now that is boundless and inexhaustible. Many will search for signs in rare miracles or seek to pierce the heavens for proof, yet the proof is as near as the next inhalation. The real hides in plain sight, veiled only by the restlessness of the mind that refuses to dwell in the present, where creation ceaselessly occurs. To remain present is to stand at the threshold of infinite beginnings, to witness the cosmos blooming anew with every blink of the eye. This is the continuous breath of existence, the eternal flowering of the first word. It asks nothing, and gives everything a rhythm without start or end. Whoever tastes even a drop of its sweetness understands that creation is not a memory but an ever-renewed gift, offered in the quiet center of each passing moment. The horizon is filled with signs for the one who learns to see, and the inner world is an even wider rider. Every direction of the sky, every turn of the heart, carries the same subtle invitation: the desert wind that sculpts dunes through endless patience, the trembling of a leaf before rain, the pause between one breath and the next. Each is a verse in a language older than speech. These are not ornaments of creation, but messages written in forms so ordinary that they pass unnoticed by eyes fixed on spectacle. The real speaks in the ripple of water and the silence of stone, waiting for the listener who can hear meaning without sound. To read these signs is not to decode riddles with the cleverness of the mind, but to awaken the deeper sense that lies beneath thought. The intellect seeks patterns to confirm itself, but the heart knows a recognition that requires no argument. When a dawn spreads gold across the earth, or a child laughs with unguarded joy, something within the attentive soul stirs with a familiarity beyond memory. This stirring is the sign itself, the mark of the one who fashioned both seer and seen. Nothing stands apart from that presence. The world is a continuous scripture and every living thing a verse. The sacred text hints at this truth when it speaks of signs on the horizons and within the self. The sefer are not separate realms, but mirrors reflecting one another. What unfolds in the sky finds echo in the chambers of the heart. The circling of planets is matched by the orbit of thoughts, the tide of oceans by the ebb and flow of desire. To observe the world is to observe the inner landscape, and to know the inner is to glimpse the structure of the cosmos. The seeker who walks this double path begins to sense a unity that defies explanation, the realization that the outward and the inward are woven from the same infinite thread. Yet most pass by these revelations as though blind. Habits of distraction build walls more solid than stone. The noise of ambition and the clamor of fear drown the quiet hints that surround us. A bird's sudden flight becomes mere movement, the fragrance of earth after rain mere chemistry. The signs are hidden not because they are rare, but because the heart has been trained to overlook what cannot be possessed. The veil is the everyday itself, familiar to the point of invisibility. To break this habit of blindness, the seeker cultivates a different kind of attention. It is not the tense focus of analysis, but the soft gaze of wonder, a readiness to be surprised by what has always been present. In this gaze, the world brightens of its own accord. The ordinary street reveals infinite geometry. A single drop of water displays the heavens in miniature, and the quiet beating of the heart resounds like the drum of creation. What once seemed mute now speaks with eloquence, and the boundary between inner and outer fades until each reflects the other with perfect clarity. In that clarity, the universe becomes a living revelation. Every motion of the stars, every gesture of a stranger, every flicker of thought is a disclosure of the same endless source. The signs do not point away from themselves. They are themselves the meeting with the real. To dwell in their presence is to dwell in the nearness of the one who has never been absent, whose language is written in the fabric of existence and whose voice is the quiet pulse of the heart. The self stands like a fortress built of smoke, appearing solid yet dissolving the moment one reaches to touch it. From birth it gathers names, memories, desires, and fears, weaving them into a mask that calls itself I. This mask believes it owns a past and commands a future, yet its substance is no more enduring than mist in the morning sun. The hidden truth is that the self is the most persistent veil between the seeker and the real, for it clings to its own illusion with desperate devotion. To approach the infinite, one must first see through this phantom that insists on being real. The ego feeds on separation. It draws lines between self and other, heaven and earth, sacred and profane. These divisions are useful for navigating the world, but they are shadows of a deeper unity. When the mind believes these boundaries are absolute, it forgets that they are only temporary arrangements of perception. The heart that is bound to these divisions cannot perceive the seamless expanse beneath them, and so it wanders, restless and unsatisfied, mistaking its own reflection for reality. The first step toward unveiling is to recognize that the fortress is hollow. This recognition is not achieved through violence against the self, but through a gentle seeing. The seeker watches thoughts rise and fade like waves upon a shore, watches feelings swell and dissipate, watches the story of me rewrite itself 1,000 times in a single day. With patient attention, the illusion becomes evident. The watcher remains while every thought and mood passes away, revealing that what we call the self is merely a procession of fleeting forms. The more clearly this is seen, the less power the illusion holds. Yet the ego resists with subtle force. It will clothe itself in piety or scholarship, pride or humility, anything to maintain its claim to permanence. It whispers that without it, nothing remains, that surrender means annihilation. This is the deepest fear, the dread of vanishing into what cannot be named. But the vanishing is not destruction. It is the opening of a door. What disappears is only the false solidity that confined the soul, and what remains is a presence wider than the sky. To die before death is to let the mask fall while the body still breathes. It is a quiet dying, the release of the need to defend, to compare, to possess. When the seeker consents to this inner death, the world is seen with unclouded eyes. Every face becomes a mirror, every sound a hymn, every breath a sign of the one who has always been nearer than the self could imagine. The veil was never outside. It was the very idea of I that claimed to stand apart. Freedom begins in this recognition. Without the burden of a separate self, life is no longer a battle for survival or a quest for status. Actions arise like wind through trees, natural and unforced. Love flows without demand, for there is no longer a center that needs to be satisfied. What once seemed like loss is revealed as abundance, a boundless intimacy with all that exists. The illusion of ownership fades, and with it fades the fear of ending, for what we truly are has neither beginning nor end. The dissolution of the self is not an escape from the world, but a deeper entrance into it. Colors brighten, sounds deepen, every encounter shines with the clarity of first light. The seeker realizes that the one sought has been the seer all along, that the fortress of smoke was only a dance of the very presence it obscured. In that realization, the last defense falls away, and what remains is the simple, limitless awareness that has always been here, quietly radiant beneath the name of to die before death is the invitation whispered at the core of every revelation. A call to surrender all that claims permanence before the body itself is laid in the earth. It is not a violence against life, but the deepest affirmation of life. For only by relinquishing the illusion of control can the soul taste the freedom that has always been its birthright. Physical death arrives for all, stripping away possessions and names. But the inner death is a conscious choice, a deliberate yielding of the false self, while breath still moves in the chest. This is the death that opens the door to the infinite. The death that reveals immortality not as endless time but as timeless presence. The path to this surrender begins in silence. In the quiet of dawn or the hush of midnight, the seeker listens beyond words until thought itself begins to fade. Memories lose their weight, ambitions loosen their grip, and even the sense of a separate I grows thin. What remains is an awareness vast and unbound, like a sky without edges. To rest in that awareness is to glimpse what waits beyond the final heartbeat. One sees that the self, with all its stories, has never been the true possessor of life. Life has always been the unseen current, and the self merely a passing shape upon its surface. Fear rises in the face of such realization. The ego trembles, insisting that without it there is only emptiness. Yet those who step through this fear discover that the emptiness is full, a luminous stillness more real than anything the senses can name. In that stillness, every boundary softens. The difference between inside and outside, seeker and sought, fades like mist. What once seemed the end of identity reveals itself as the beginning of true being. This inner death transforms how the world appears. The colors of day sharpen, sounds gain a quiet depth, and even the simplest gesture carries a sacred weight. Nothing is owned, yet everything is received. Love flows without measure, because there is no longer a center demanding to be loved. Compassion arises, not as duty but as the natural fragrance of a heart freed from grasping. Actions become effortless, like the movement of wind through trees, because they are no longer chained to the will of a separate self. The sages speak of this state as subsistence after annihilation, a life lived in the radiance of the one who cannot die. But the language of stages and states is only a map. The reality is immediate and intimate, nearer than breath. One does not travel to reach it. One simply releases the false and discovers that the real has always been present. The death before death is thus a return, a homecoming to the source from which every heartbeat flows. To embrace this dying is to know that physical death holds no terror. When the final moment comes, it is resigns as a continuation of the surrender already begun. The body may fall, the mind may dissolve, but the awareness that tasted freedom remains untouched, unbound by time. The secret is not escape, but completeness. The realization that nothing was ever separate, that the one who lived and the one who gives life are not two. In this understanding, the ordinary is transfigured. Every breath is a resurrection, every glance a meeting with eternity. The seeker who has died before death walks the world with quiet joy, carrying no burden of tomorrow, fearing no loss of yesterday. Life becomes the endless present, and the end of all things is revealed as the beginning without end. Beauty is the most subtle language of the real. A speech without syllables that moves through color, sound, fragrance, and form. It is the secret by which the infinite draws the finite toward itself, luring the heart with a sweetness it cannot resist. A single curve of a petal, the hush of evening light across a quiet street, the cadence of sacred recitation. Each is a doorway through which the unseen steps into the visible. Yet beauty hides as much as it reveals. It dazzles the senses so that the mind pauses, and in that pause the deeper presence may be felt. The hidden one veils and unveils through the shimmer of the ordinary, inviting the seeker to taste the eternal in what seems fleeting. This language of beauty speaks in endless dialects. The desert wind etching patterns in sand, the spiral of a seashell, the sudden laughter of a stranger, all bear the same signature. They are not mere decorations of existence, but signs of its source. To encounter them fully is to be drawn beyond the object itself, into the silence from which it arose. When the heart lingers with a piece of music or the play of moonlight on water, it is not the notes or the light that hold the soul. It is the trace of the limitless reflected in the finite. The senses become instruments of remembrance, each perception a reminder of what no eye can see. Yet many treat beauty as possession. They grasp at it, frame it, buy and sell it. And in grasping, they lose the very essence they seek. For beauty is not a thing to be owned. It is an event, a meeting between the eternal and the momentary. The more one tries to capture it, the more it slips away, leaving only the husk of appearance. To truly behold is to receive without claiming, to let the experience bloom and fade like fragrance on the breeze. Only in such openness can the hidden presence disclose itself. The seeker who learns this openness discovers that beauty is not limited to what the world calls lovely. It shines in the weathered face of an elder, in the rough grain of stone, in the quiet dignity of decay. Even sorrow carries a hidden grace, for in its depth the heart is softened and made ready to perceive what lies beyond pleasure and pain. Beauty is not the denial of imperfection, but its transfiguration. Through it, the real whispers that nothing is wasted, that every form, radiant or broken, belongs to the same eternal artistry. In moments of true seeing, the boundary between seer and seen dissolves. The color of the sky is not outside the witness, but part of a single field of awareness. The song of a bird is heard, not by an isolated ear, but by the whole presence in which bird and listener arise together. Beauty thus becomes a mirror in which the seeker recognizes the unity that underlies all difference. It is the play of the infinite within the finite, a revelation that speaks without words and vanishes as soon as one tries to hold it. Such encounters leave a quiet transformation. The heart becomes more tender, the mind less certain, the senses more alive. Gratitude flows without effort, for every sight and sound is recognized as a gift that cannot be earned. Life itself is experienced as an art beyond measure, each moment a stroke of a brush guided by an unseen hand. To walk in this awareness is to move through a world that glows with hidden light, where every fragment points back to the whole. Beauty, therefore, is not an escape from reality, but its deepest expression. It calls the soul toward the source of all forms, teaching without argument that the eternal dwells in the transient. When the seeker allows this teaching to enter the heart, the world reveals itself as a continuous act of love, and every breath becomes a quiet hymn to the one who paints existence with color and sound. The journey that seems to stretch across lifetimes is in truth a circle whose center is everywhere, and whose circumference cannot be drawn. From the first stirring of curiosity to the final surrender of the self, every step is a return to what has never been absent. The seeker imagines distance, imagines a goal shining beyond the horizon. Yet the horizon itself is made of imagination. Each effort to advance, Each trial and revelation gradually wears away the belief in separation until the path and the destination are known to be one. What appears as a long pilgrimage through deserts of longing is the slow recognition that the home sought has always been within the heart. In the early stages, the traveler feels the weight of exile. The world appears fractured, filled with opposites, joy and grief, gain and loss, birth and death. The longing for unity drives the search, and this longing is itself a sign of the hidden nearness. Every practice, every prayer, every night of quiet vigil is a response to that silent call. Yet the very act of seeking carries a paradox, for it reinforces the sense of a seeker who must find. The deeper the longing, the closer the realization that the seeker and the sought cannot truly be apart. As insight grows, the landmarks of the path begin to dissolve. The concepts that once guided the traveler, purity, progress, even the idea of spiritual attainment, become transparent like glass in bright sun. What remains is a simplicity beyond striving. The heart learns to rest in the present moment, no longer reaching forward or clinging back. In that stillness, the familiar world takes on a quiet radiance. Ordinary sounds and sights become revelations. The whisper of leaves, the rhythm of footsteps, the warmth of sunlight on skin, each is experienced as a direct expression of the infinite, needing no interpretation. The realization of homecoming often arrives without fanfare. There is no thunder, no sudden blaze of light, and the unmistakable knowing that nothing was ever missing. The one who was sought has been the very awareness of seeking, the listener behind every prayer, the silence beneath every thought. The heart recognizes itself as the dwelling of the eternal, and with that recognition the sense of a journey collapses. Time loses its edge, past and future fade like a dream upon waking. What remains is the vast immediacy of now, a presence that neither begins nor ends. From this understanding flows a gentle freedom. Relationships continue, tasks are performed, but they are no longer bound by the gravity of ownership or the fear of loss. Love becomes natural and unmeasured, compassion effortless, action spontaneous. The traveler who once strained toward a distant goal now moves lightly through the world, seeing every encounter as an expression of the same reality. Even challenges and sorrows are welcomed as part of the single unfolding. Life is lived with a quiet joy that does not depend on circumstance, for the center has been found everywhere. The homecoming is not an escape from life, but its full embrace. Having discovered the unity beneath appearances, the dhikr no longer turns away from the textures of existence, the changing seasons, the rise and fall of fortunes, the laughter and the tears. All are recognized as movements of the one boundless life. The world has not changed, yet everything shines with a hidden brightness. The return is not to a place, but to a way of seeing in which the ordinary reveals its eternal depth. Thus, the end of the journey is the recognition that there was never a road, only the endless unfolding of the real within itself. The traveler who set out seeking a distant truth awakens to find that the path, the seeker, and the sought have always been a single reality. The circle closes where it began, and the beginning is here in the quiet presence that has never left. Silence is the final teacher, the presence that speaks without voice and concludes without ending. When all concepts have fallen away and every image of the journey has dissolved, what remains is a stillness more eloquent than any scripture. It is not the silence of absence, but the fullness of a reality too vast for words, a living depth that underlies every sound and gesture. In this stillness, the boundaries of self and world, seeker and sought, fade like mist at dawn. Awareness rests in itself, unbound by time, untouched by change, quietly radiant. To enter this silence is not to retreat from life, but to meet it completely. The wind through trees, the hum of distant traffic, the rhythm of a heartbeat, all are gathered into a single field of listening. Nothing is rejected. Nothing is clung to. Thoughts may arise, sensations may come and go, yet they no longer obscure the ground of being. They are ripples on a measureless sea, each appearing and dissolving in the same instant. The mind, once frantic for explanation, relaxes into a knowing that requires no proof. Here, the sense of a separate observer disappears. The one who sought and the object of seeking are revealed as a single, seamless presence. There is no longer a listener apart from the sound, no watcher apart from the scene. The universe is experienced as one unbroken moment, endlessly creating and dissolving, and the awareness of it is identical with its unfolding. The play of existence continues. Birds sing, rivers flow, hearts beat, yet there is no distance between the witness and the witnessed. This silence is not fragile. It is the quiet that remains when empires rise and fall, when stars are born and burn away. It is the same silence that preceded the first breath of creation and will outlast the final flicker of light. To rest in it is to taste eternity while living in time, to discover a peace that cannot be disturbed by the turbulence of the world. Joy and sorrow, gain and loss, life and death, all are movements within this vast stillness, and none can diminish its depth. From this realization flows a gentle clarity. Actions continue, but they are no longer driven by fear or desire. Compassion arises naturally, like fragrance from a flower, for the boundaries between beings are seen as transparent. Love is no longer a choice, but the very nature of existence, expressing itself in every breath. There is nothing to defend, nothing to possess, nothing to become. Each moment is complete, a perfect unfolding of the infinite within the finite. The quiet of this state is not a void, but a fullness beyond measure. It contains every color, every sound, every possibility, yet it is untouched by the changes it embraces. The heart that abides here is both empty and overflowing, empty of self, yet overflowing with life. To live from this silence is to walk in the world as in a sacred sanctuary, seeing the hidden light shining through every face, every stone, every shadow. In the end, there is no end, only the continual revelation of this presence that has never been absent. Words fall silent, thoughts dissolve, and what remains is the simple awareness that has been here from the first moment, and before all moments. It is the ground of all beginnings, the home beyond every journey, the infinite now that neither comes nor goes, quietly eternal. The path now bends inward, beyond the reach of description, where the seeker becomes the sought and every question unwinds of its own accord. What once seemed like hidden chambers of faith or secret teachings reveals itself as the simple immediacy of being. No veil separates the breath from the vastness it moves within. Each inhale is the universe entering, each exhale the universe returning, a single pulse without origin or end. The mind, accustomed to carving reality into name and form, softens in this spaciousness. Language becomes a distant echo, a gesture towards something it cannot contain. Symbols that once guided stars, scriptures, sacred geometry, are understood as mirrors, not the light itself. The heart recognizes that every image of the divine was only a door, and the door was never locked. Here the rhythm of existence is both still and dynamic. Waves of sensation arise, the scent of earth after rain, the flicker of candlelight, the quiet warmth of skin. Each detail glows with an almost unbearable intimacy. Nothing is ordinary, nothing is outside the dance. Even pain becomes a movement of grace, a curve in the endless unfolding. What once was called hidden is only the ever-present revealing itself again and again. There is a humility in this realization. The ego, which once demanded proofs and guarded conclusions, bows without ceremony. It does not vanish in a blaze of triumph, but dissolves like a shadow at noon. Actions continue, steps taken, words spoken, but they are no longer claimed. Life lives itself. The river flows not because of effort, but because flowing is its nature. From this vantage, time loosens its grip. Past and future lose their sharp edges, blending into a luminous now. Memories surface like reflections on water, but they do not bind. Anticipations fade before they can harden. What remains is a clarity that does not need to hold on to anything. Even the idea of enlightenment becomes unnecessary. Another wave passing across the still ocean of awareness. Compassion emerges, not as a virtue to cultivate, but as a spontaneous recognition. All beings share this same ground. The sorrow of another is felt as one's own. The joy of another as equally one's own. Helping and being helped are no longer separate acts, but the natural flow of interconnected life. Love, once thought of as an emotion or duty, is simply the texture of existence itself, limitless and unconditioned. In this silence that is full of sound, the seeker sees the world afresh. A leaf trembling in the breeze carries the entire story of creation. The night sky, studded with stars, speaks of both infinite distance and infinite intimacy. Nothing needs to be added. Nothing can be taken away. The hidden has never been elsewhere. It is this very moment, radiant and whole. And so the journey circles back to where it began. Though nothing is as it was, the ordinary is revealed as the miraculous. The self that once searched has dissolved into the vastness it longed to find. There is only this endless unfolding, this boundless presence, forever beginning, forever complete. The final turning of the path is not an ending, but a quiet recognition of what has always been present. All seeking, all striving, all the layered stories of hidden truths and veiled mysteries settle into a single awareness that cannot be grasped or named. It is not reached by effort, nor lost through forgetting. Like the vast sky that holds both storm and sunlight, this presence remains untouched by the movements within it. In this clarity, every boundary melts. The body is felt as a swirl of the same elements that shape mountain and sea. The breath is the world breathing. Each heartbeat echoes the rhythm of galaxies. There is no separate witness standing apart from creation. The act of seeing and what is seen are one undivided reality. What once seemed distant or concealed now shines with unmistakable intimacy. The old questions, who am I? What is beyond? Become like footprints on water. Impossible hold. Answers dissolve before they can form. Yet there is no emptiness here, only a luminous fullness. Every sound, from the murmur of wind to the laughter of a child, vibrates with a single timeless tone. Every movement, from the smallest flicker of thought to the birth of stars, is a gesture of the same unbroken life. This recognition does not withdraw from the world. It infuses it. Ordinary moments carry a quiet magnificence. The play of light on a wall, the taste of cool water, the warmth of another's presence. Nothing is too small to be sacred. Nothing stands outside the whole. The mind no longer divides experience into sacred and profane, hidden and revealed. All is the same vast intimacy, endlessly expressing itself. Compassion flows without calculation, as natural as breathing. To meet another is to meet oneself. For there is no true distance between beings. Acts of kindness require no motive, and leave no trace. They are the effortless movements of a heart that knows its own boundless expanse. Sorrow and joy are not opposites, but complementary waves in the same ocean. Even the idea of completion fades. There is no final attainment, no ultimate secret to uncover. What seemed a journey was a continuous unfolding of what never began and never ends. The hidden was only the ever-present unnoticed, until the seeking quieted enough to see. The seeker and the sought, the path and the destination are revealed as one and the same. Here, silence speaks in every sound. Stillness moves in every action. The infinite wears every form, yet remains formless. This is the simplicity beyond all complexity, the truth that needs no defense. To rest here is not to escape life, but to live it completely, without grasping or resistance, awake to the miracle of each instant. And so the story continues without conclusion, a dance of light and shadow within the boundless. There is no final word, no last step, only the endless presence that was never absent, quietly shining in all that is and all that will be. The movement of awareness now becomes indistinguishable from the movement of existence itself. There is no longer a sense of walking a path, for the path and the one who walks are a single unfolding. Each breath arrives as a gift beyond possession, each moment a revelation of the same limitless ground. The notion of a hidden reality dissolves because nothing stands apart to be hidden. What once seemed veiled is simply the ever-present shining of being. Thoughts still arise, yet they are transparent, like clouds drifting through an endless sky. They no longer claim ownership, no longer bind identity. Memories surface and fade, desires flicker and fade, all within the spaciousness that neither clings nor rejects. There is an intimate knowing that this awareness has no edge, no center, no measure. It is the quiet that holds the world, and the world itself is nothing other than this quiet. The senses awaken to a vivid immediacy. The scent of soil after rain carries the depth of centuries. The faint rustle of leaves becomes a cosmic symphony. Each sight and sound is complete, needing nothing added, nothing removed. What was once labeled mundane reveals itself as miraculous. The infinite hidden in plain view. There is no ordinary day, no ordinary gesture. Every heartbeat is the universe speaking its own name. Compassion arises as effortlessly as light from the sun. There is no calculation, no idea of virtue, only a natural response to the shared essence of all beings. To see another suffer is to feel that suffering as one's own, yet without despair, for the same boundless presence flows through every life. Kindness is no longer a choice. It is the very movement of existence meeting itself. Time loosens until it becomes a soft, permeable concept. Past and future lose their urgency, blending into a single, luminous now. Actions occur, decisions unfold, yet they arise without the tension of control. Life lives itself, a spontaneous dance that requires no choreographer. The idea of destiny fades, replaced by the simple recognition that this moment is all that ever truly is. There is a profound humility in this realization. No claim of attainment remains, no posture of enlightenment. The self that once sought to possess truth is revealed as a pattern of thought, a temporary swirl in the vastness. Yet life continues. Words are spoken, tasks are done, relationships deepen. Nothing is renounced, nothing is clung to. Being and doing are not two. Even silence is heard differently. It is not the absence of sound but the presence of everything. The hum of existence, the pulse of stars, the breath of the earth. This silence sings through every note of music, every cry of a newborn, every whisper of wind. To dwell in it is not to withdraw but to participate fully, to know each instant as an expression of the infinite. Here, the story has no ending. The journey that seemed to lead to a destination reveals itself as an endless blossoming. The hidden truth is not a final secret, but the living reality of this and every moment. Nothing more is needed. Nothing more can be given. Presence simply is, boundless and complete, shining through all that appears. The quiet that unfolds now is not separate from the pulse of life. It is the pulse itself. What once felt like a destination turns out to be the very ground on which every step has always rested. Awareness no longer looks outward or inward, for those directions have dissolved. There is only the immediacy of being, a presence that neither begins nor ends. No veil remains to be lifted, no mystery left to chase. Thoughts pass like ripples on a wind-touched lake, forming and fading without resistance. They carry no claim of ownership, no urgency to be believed. Memories appear as gentle reflections, and future plans as brief sparks, all suspended in the same luminous stillness. Identity once held so tightly is seen as a fleeting pattern of sensations and ideas, a dance with no fixed dancer. Every sensation now reveals a boundless intimacy. The scent of wood smoke, the cool brush of evening air, the rhythm of a heartbeat, each is complete in itself, shining with the whole of creation. Nothing stands outside this fullness. The so-called ordinary glows with a subtle radiance, a stone on the path, the flicker of candlelight, the hush before dawn, all are expressions of a single measureless reality. Compassion flows without effort, not as a task but as the natural movement of life. Recognizing itself, to witness another's joy or pain, is to feel it directly without separation. Acts of kindness require no thought of virtue, no sense of giver or receiver. They arise as spontaneously as a river finding its way to the sea, guided by nothing and needing no reward. Time loses its edges. Past and future mingle like colors in a twilight sky, and the present expands until it is boundless. Actions still unfold, conversations, work, rest, but they are free of the weight of expectation. There is no longer a doer apart from the doing, no watcher apart from the watched. Life simply lives, a dance without a center, flowing effortlessly. There is a gentle humility in this realization. No claim of achievement remains, for there is no separate self to achieve anything. Enlightenment, once imagined as a distant summit, is understood as the simple truth of what has always been. The search ends not in triumph, but in the quiet recognition that nothing was ever missing. Silence pervades everything, yet it is alive with sound. The murmur of wind, the laughter of children, the song of distant water, all arise within it and are not apart from it. This silence is not emptiness, but overflowing presence, the source and substance of every moment. To dwell here is to see that each breath, each glance, each heartbeat is sacred. The journey circles endlessly, yet there is nowhere to go. What was called hidden is revealed as the most obvious fact. Existence itself, unbroken and complete. No final revelation waits beyond this, no higher state to attain. The infinite is this very moment, ever present, quietly radiant, forever expressing itself in all that is. The unfolding reaches a stillness so vast it no longer feels like a stage of travel. The seeker who began the journey has dissolved into the quiet rhythm of being, where nothing is outside and nothing is missing. Awareness is neither inward nor outward. It is the field in which all directions rise and fade. The idea of a hidden truth has lost its meaning, for the truth is nothing other than the immediacy of this moment, endlessly self-revealing. Thoughts move like soft currents in a limitless sea, gentle and translucent. They have no anchor, no power to disturb. Memories shimmer and drift away. Futures form and dissolve, each a fleeting image upon the same luminous expanse. The self that once clung to these currents is no longer found. It was only another ripple, another temporary play of light. Every sensation is whole. The smell of rain on stone, the hush of distant waves, the faint warmth of sunlight on skin, each carries the infinite within it. What once appeared ordinary shines as the sacred. A single breath is an entire cosmos inhaling and exhaling itself. There is no boundary where the world ends and awareness begins. Compassion flows like a spring with no source. It is not a virtue or an act, but the natural recognition of unity. To meet another is to meet oneself, and kindness becomes as effortless as light from the sun. Sorrow and joy are no longer opposites. They are waves of one ocean, rising and falling without division. Time softens into the timeless. Past and future mingle, and the present reveals itself as boundless. Actions unfold, words spoken, tasks completed. Yet there is no sense of a separate doer. Life moves of its own accord, a dance of unbroken wholeness. Nothing needs to be controlled. Nothing needs to be secured. Silence permeates every sound. The rustle of leaves, the heartbeat in the chest, the distant song of a bird, all arise within it and are not apart from it. This silence is vibrant, alive with the fullness of existence. To rest in it is to discover a peace that is not fragile but infinitely strong, a peace that was never absent even in the storm. Here the journey comes full circle, and yet there is no final destination. The hidden was always the obvious, the eternal present that quietly contains all beginnings and endings. What was sought was never elsewhere, never later. The road, the traveler, and the goal have always been one. This is the simple, wordless truth, being itself, radiant and whole. No conclusion can capture it, no final phrase can bind it. Life continues, vast and intimate, every moment a new creation of the infinite. The story ends only as stories end, by revealing that there was never a separation to overcome, only this endless presence forever unfolding, forever complete.